Good after, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, from wherever you're calling around the world. My name is Cindy Martin. I'm with the Children for Compassion International Women and Girls Sector, and it's my delight to welcome Grandmother Flordemayo back for our urgent call from the Spirit of the Feminine, 20 days of Ish call, and the last many months with grandmother are proven to be just so fruitful, and with the deep and high wisdom that grandmother shares with us to bring our awareness to our power of the divine feminine that lies in all of us and is all around us in our natural world, and the value and the importance of connecting there is right literally at our fingertips. So thank you, grandmother. I'm so excited to about this call, and looking forward to it with great anticipation. The 4 cycles of life. And I'm looking forward so much to hearing your deep wisdom here. And for those of you who might be noticing right now, there might be a little, your connection might sound a little scratchy. We may sound a little distant. I hope you can hear okay. And if you cannot, please let me know in the chat window. Just for a little bit of housekeeping before I turn the call over to grandmother, I would just want to remind you that at the bottom of your screen, you have a chat window or a Q&A button, and either one of those will get your message through to me. So if you're having a hard time hearing me or grandmother, please let us know and we'll try to adjust accordingly. With that said, please do use both of those buttons freely, because I see I'm getting a comment already. There is an echo. Right, I'm going to try to adjust that, so bear with me, and I really appreciate that feedback. No pun intended with that. I'm going to try that again. Before I do, let me just say, grandmother does love your question. So make sure that I hear that feedback. I'm so sorry. We're trying to work on that. And so ask your question freely, and then I'm going to mute myself, and hopefully that'll help. Grandmother, I'm going to call over to you in this moment of technical difficulty and invite you to welcome, and we're going to start by welcoming you, but go ahead and welcome everybody and share with us 4 cycles of life.
Greetings to everybody, much blessings to everyone, sending lots of love and light to each and every one out in the 4 directions. I want to thank our beloved Creator for bringing us together in this circle of light as we meet today on this beautiful, beautiful day of Ish. Beloved Creator, thank you for the beauty of the moment and circling us up, bringing us together again and again every 20 days so that we can discuss our beautiful relationship between humanity and the beauty of nature, everything that is around us, beloved Creator, the spirit of the sun, the spirit of the air, the spirit of the earth, and the spirit of the waters, all of the sacred elements, beloved Creator. That is who we are. We're children of the elements, we're children of nature, and we cannot separate ourselves from who we are. Just a gentle reminder to everybody that we are that children of the sacred elements. Good morning to everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. Much blessings, love, and light. I greet you with an open heart. Thank you so much. Today, we're going to speak about the 4 sacred elements and what this means according to the people of the center, the people of my ancestors, the Maya, largest nation in Central America between the Yucatan Peninsula and Nicaragua. The Maya say that we, as humans, have 4 cycles of life. The first cycle is birth through 13th. Within this cycle, we do that. We express ourselves and become one with the elements for the first time. We are coming out of our sac in birth through the canal with the spirit of the water. We come out and we take our first breath, and there we become one with the spirit of the sacred breath. As we get older, we then take our first steps, or perhaps maybe we get to sit on the earth and we feel the spirit of the sacred earth. At the same time, we might, through our parents, be taken out into the open and feel the spirit of the sacred sun. So all of these elements we are introduced to as little bitty babies. We are one with these elements, and somehow some of us lose that relationship, that this is who we are and this is what we do on a daily basis. We're surrounded by the air, which is the breath that we take. We're surrounded by the beauty of the water, which is something that we need to survive. And yet, you know, we are taken out into the warmth of the sun and feel the sun, the brightness, or perhaps maybe we would feel the clouds. Also, we feel the earth, the dirt, we feel it in our hands. We feel the blades of grass within our hands. We start feeling the pebbles and the stones within our hands. We walk and we run on the earth at this age. And we become one with all that there is. We start noticing the beauty around us. We hear the birds. We feel the dew of the morning in our hands and in our feet. We feel the beauty of the clouds, the beauty of the sun, the beauty of the colors of nature, the beauty of all of that that's out there, the birds, the butterflies, the bugs. We start noticing all of that that is moving about us, and we fall in love again and again with all of the beauty that is around us. And so we have that time as children. And as we become older children, we go into the second cycle, which is between 13 and 26. And during that time, on our first cycle and second cycle, if you're a child in Central America, if there's especially, you know, some of the children, there are those times that you might be involved in outside education, schooling, but 99% of the time you're being educated, verbally educated at home on all that is that you need to survive on the earth. And so, as in our first phase, we are introduced to teachings and schooling. Second phase, we continue with the teachings and schooling. And as I mentioned, it totally depends on where in the four directions you are, where in the globe, but it does happen simultaneously with all cultures, that children are taught at home first, and then they are taught outside of the home. And so we move into our second stage between the ages of 13 and 26. And in this stage, we learn all kinds of different things. We are more apt to become and have the desire to be a little more independent, independent from home, independent from our parents. There is a natural way of just becoming a little more independent we go through that process of our teenage years and early adulthood, and we go through the process of relationships and in and out of relationships and working relationships, schooling relationships, and all of this independence relationships. And as we come into our third stage of life, we go from 26 to 39. And in this particular stage of life, we become young adults. By this time, we could have already found a partner. Perhaps maybe we're thinking about having children. Perhaps now we have finished our education and are more independent or totally independent from our parents at this time. And so we are existing as parents, raising our families, and having that other relationship of life. And then we go into the fourth cycle, which is that from 39 to 52. And it is at this period of time that we are, how should I say, mature adults, becoming elders. And at this time, our children are possibly going through their first, second cycle. And we are in preparation perhaps now of helping our children with their continuation of their cycles. And they are going into, at the moment, perhaps maybe going to further their education through university, through different types of jobs, and becoming more independent. And so we are helping our generation, our children to help themselves, and we fall into that cycle of becoming a little independent from our children and looking forward more into grandchildren. And our independence brings us over the age of 52. What is important about the 52 is that in Central America, it is recognized as becoming an elder. So it's not like the Western society that you wait for retirement at 62 or 67 or 70, 74. That does not play a role. As Central American, of course, you know, we're constantly working because we have daily things that that we do, but we're not out per se out in a field of working, you know, from the time that the sun rises until the time that the sun goes down. This age of 52 becomes an age where you become honored because you have been responsible and have successfully gone through these 4 cycles, have done what is expected of you to do in becoming an elder, raising your family, looking forward to grandchildren. And it is at this moment where family and community especially look at you as having successfully finished these cycles. And right now you go into a cycle after the age of 52 where you go into this independent relationship of just being one with the Creator. In other words, if you choose to live a monastic life at this moment, well, it's all perfect. And I have met and known of elders that after they become 52, they would say to their family, well, I love you very much, but now it's my time to just, be in prayer and just be one with God. And so sometimes elders would say to their families, I will see you later. I am going to go. And it doesn't matter where they say they're going to go, but they have this independent life where that's where they are. They're dedicated to the prayer, dedicated to nature, dedicated to cosmos, and dedicated in living that beautiful, beautiful life of prayer. So I feel that at this particular moment, it's important for all of us to get a feel of how these things are done in Central America, and so elders are honored at this particular moment. So I'm going to just stop right there for the moment and ask Sandy if, because we had hearing difficulties with the phone call, if everything was heard clearly. Were you able to hear that, Sandy?
Yes, grandmother, you are coming over just a little bit scratchy, but from what I hear from the audience and from the comments we're receiving, you're coming over okay. There's just the volume is a little low, but I think we've adjusted that, and hopefully that's helped. I'm not hearing an echo right now, so perhaps it was adjusted on the back end. But again, your feedback out in the audience is very important. And once again, your questions are very important as well to grandmother. So right now we don't have any questions, but comments are all that we are able to hear you.
Okay, so any way that the dialogue can start, we should start now. I understand that it's a different way of seeing things, of hearing things. But if anybody has any questions, or thoughts, we're interested in comments and thoughts, of course. Or Sandy, you might even have something.
I do. I just really love the pattern that you've laid out for us here. In the first cycle being, of awareness, of self-discovery, of discovery of the natural world around us. And then as we move into our independence, we also move into a pattern of relationship with others. And for me, I'm very interested in this phase between 1 and 2, and so often we find ourselves disconnected from the natural world by the things that we learn, particularly in the Western world, where it's not emphasized to focus on our natural world around us, but to learn our ABCs and to learn the very linear thinking that does not allow for much relationship with nature and the organic unfolding of how life works. Almost putting us in a controlling mentality, a domination mentality over the world around us. And what I love what you said was that moving from stage 1 to stage 2, I just kept hearing the word relationship, and partnership, and wondering what can we do, especially in raising our children, and as well as our own awareness of that separation from the natural world.
Okay, so let me just backtrack a little bit, Sandy. You say age 1 and 2. It's actually cycle 1 and 2. I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
you have those 13 years in between. It's okay. I understood what you were saying.
Sorry.
But how perfect it is, because if we think of a baby right now, this very moment in 2017, right? If we think of a baby right now, in the way that I've been speaking. So right now, a baby is born and it's put in a very, very sterile environment. The baby is protected from everything. In other words, in Central America, when a baby is born, it's not separated from the environment. If the mother has to go out, she wraps the baby and she goes about and does her daily chores. So the baby immediately is listening to the birds, is aware of the different changes in temperature outside, is listening to nature, whether you're listening to the birds or listening to the wind, you are aware of the light and dark, the shadows of the sunlight and the no sunlight. You are listening out in open, the voices of your siblings, your aunts, your uncles, your granny. There's constant dialogue and interaction. If you see a baby here in the United States, the baby might be in a very quiet environment in the baby's own little room. Perhaps maybe some new parents might put a little pillow that might have the sound of the heartbeat or something like that. I don't know what they would do, but it has been my observation, that of course, babies are isolated from the moment, they're brought, whether they're immediately birth at home or birth in the hospital. There might be that interaction between family and children and things like that, but it's not, that 24/7 that we have in Central America. We can not in Central America not step away. We can't step away from nature. Nature is our daily moment. We are in it. We are in it, and we are in it. But here, to come out in nature, perhaps maybe is to come out in a very manicured lawn. Perhaps maybe you can't maybe you as a mom cannot sit on the lawn for whatever reason, Some reasons might be, I don't know, I don't know. We have multiple reasons, So there's always this, the thought, the thinking of the things to do and things not to do. I'm not saying, that the children should be exposed to danger or anything like that. But our everyday life in Central America is certainly different. And I'm talking about, other third world countries around the globe. And maybe not, But I have also seen some moms that have just had their newborn babies, and they have that sense of nature. And and they're out there with their babies. The baby could be a couple of days old, and they are, carrying their baby in a little baby papoose and close to their heart, but they're out there. But it certainly is far and few. What we can do is introduce the little ones as close, as quickly to nature as possible, because, then children become upset if they see an ant, they become upset if they see a little beetle, they become upset if they see a little spider, they become upset if a fly comes near them, they become upset of just about anything. And I have watched, I think, in my own watching, little ones, because they don't know. They don't know. Of course, we as adults, might say, the ladybug is gentle, and so sometimes we feed that to the children and say, oh, the ladybug, oh, she's so cute, she's nice and gentle. But then when we see a spider, we become upset, and we don't understand if it's a gentle spider or, a spider that's going to bite, or a spider that is dangerous, anything like that. We don't know. We don't have, that relationship. And I'm not saying that I know all of the answers to all the bugs and all the little crawly ones, good and indifferent. Here on the land, we have rattlesnakes, and we have bull snakes, and we have different types of lizards, things like that. We don't have any scorpions. I haven't seen any here, but if I see a snake, I stop on my tracks, and I'm trying to figure out what kind of snake is it. Is it a dangerous snake, or is it a snake that that I'm not that I should not be so afraid of? And so I think about these things, and I'm careful, of course. We can't not be careful. So I guess what I'm saying is that the difference in our first cycle of life in Central America and here, children are exposed to going to summer camp. They're exposed to going camping. The camping experience is very controlled. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that, you can only park your camper over here. You can only put your tent over here. You can only use these toilets. You can only use, the no water, no showers. You can do this. You cannot do the other thing. You can pay for one thing, but if you want something more exclusive, if you want hot water and flushing toilets when you go camping, then there's a different expense and a different experience. So, here in the United States, we could buy nature at different levels depending on our financial capacity. And, everything's perfect. Everything is okay. The thing is, how much into nature are we willing to go? How much experience, how much of our relationship are we willing to go? And we can backtrack. We can revert to the way that camping was in the 40s and 50s in this country. We can still do that. Of course, there's a lot of rules and regulations, in national parks or private parks. I don't know. I know from experience that there are, but you know, there are also, you know, places that are very accessible, perhaps in and around where we live. Getting out of the big city and introducing, you know, children to nature is a great thing. I remember us taking our daughter Heather when she was 6 months into the mountains and into the Catskills that we lived in. We were living at the time in New York City. And so we would drive up to the Catskills to introduce the baby, you know, to the open mountains and the open fields. So I believe that it's doable if I was able to do it in my simple way, and certainly not having the finances and things like that. But we did take the time to do that with our babies. So this is the first cycle that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And you just took me back to my daughter, who always felt like any mother does, was so advanced in her development and her deep wisdom as a toddler. And I just remember strolling with her, and it would take sometimes an hour to walk the length of a house on the sidewalk, because she would just stop and be enthralled with every little bug and every little thing she would see with just such awe and wonder that I knew we didn't have to go far for her to get some sunshine, because she was so immersed in her environment and every little living thing around her. Yet Suzanne Lewis asks, we have a couple questions coming in. She asks,
but can I just answer that?
Yeah.
About the baby?
Yeah.
Your baby. This is the moment that I'm speaking about, that when we are born, we are in love with all the beauty that is around us. That's the beauty that I'm talking about. That's the beauty that we experience as little children, where we are just like in awe of all of that that's in front of us, and we fall in love with nature. So, you know, okay, so I'm open to the question.
Oh, of course. No, thank you so much for elaborating on that and really driving home that point, because that is so important. And yet, how do we recognize that moment or that period of time where we find ourselves in that moment of separation? And does everyone fall in generally? And this might be a broad question, but does everyone fall into these 4 cycles? Or do some not? Suzanne asks, thank you so much, grandmother. I was wondering which cycle, oh yes, I was wondering which cycle attends to the special needs beings who never grow up. That actually speaks more to those who don't have the certain capacities that everyone has. So let me ask that question again, because I stumbled over it. I was wondering which cycle attends to the special needs beings who never grow up.
Yes, you know, these children absolutely are very, very special children because of time, space, and velocity, the Maya would say. We are not at a place of standstill. So humanity moves every 13 years, and perhaps the special needs child might stand at a standstill. The age continues to move. Perhaps maybe the child stays at a certain age, you know, 5, 7, 10, 11, whatever the age is that, you know, mentally and emotionally children stay. Perhaps they stay at the age of 15 or 20, but they continue to, the time passes and they continue to age. Perhaps emotionally, mentally, and physically they stay like a 17-year-old, but in reality, maybe they become 26, maybe they become 36. And like all of us, you know, the body ages. but there are choices that some of us that are that have the mental capacity. For myself, I wanted to answer to Grandma Suzanne. I go back, to that first cycle between 1 and 13 all of my life. I keep going back. And I love the experience of a 14-month-old, the 2-year-old, that is just coming out, strolling, whether they are trying to walk by themselves or being held by the hand, and just experiencing everything around them for the first time. And that is when I say to the beloved mother, and I say to the beloved grandmothers of the 4 directions, thank you for the beauty of the moment. Because it's taken me back into that experience, that memory that has left me to go back and go back and go back. Of course, the 70-year-old as myself going back, I'm not quite 70 right now, but almost there, keeps going back to that first cycle where I saw the beauty of color and sound and just everything that was around me was just so incredibly breathtaking that it would just take me into another place, and almost a place of disbelief that there is such beauty around us, and I fell in love. It is a falling in love experience that we go back to.
That's quite beautiful, and what an important thing to remember throughout our lives, because like you said, so many of us live in a manicured world that we feel that we have certain limitations, but love is always with us, isn't it? We can always be in that state of love. And remember the importance of transcending one cycle back to the other. And by the way, I'm sorry, grandmother Suzanne Lewis followed up your comment with, I'm seeing that the grandparents, the elders, seem to be called to become guardians.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Brea Friesel asks, and she says, greetings, Flordemayo. I send you much love and gratitude. Thank you so much for the explanation and permissions of what is the proper focus in this 4th stage of life, which helps me in choosing what to focus on each day. So many things pull our attention, yet all I really want to do is the prayer, especially to be out in the natural world. Thank you so.
Yes. And so it's owed to us, we say in our teachings, that it is our right as a human, when we come into a certain age, that we can dedicate ourselves to be in that place of prayer and present with God and nature 24/7. It is our right. It's a human right.
So I'm a little taken back by that, and perhaps transformed personally by that, because I've always felt it's my responsibility. But when you put it that way, it transforms the whole relationship. And so perhaps is that what Brea means when she says permission? Because permission here is capitalized.
Yes, it is. It is something that humanity should really, really think about. Us humans, we should think about, because we were not meant not to be in that relationship. We are meant to be in that constant relationship 24/7. You know, in the beginning, and still is, you know, we're always on a survival mode. Okay, so, you know, a person in Central America, I'm speaking only about myself. We're always thinking about, okay, let's see, what am I going to make for breakfast? What am I going to do? Okay, I got done with breakfast. Let's see, what else am I going to do? You know, the sun is out. I'm going to get the laundry out, and I'm going to go pick my vegetables and get ready for lunch. You know, so you make a quick soup, and you know, you feed your family, and then, you know, it's in the afternoon. The clothes should be ready. You know, they're dry. The sun has been out. Blah 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 blah. You fold your clothes. You dry your clothes, and you know, you do all of these everyday mundane things that we do, and then you get ready for dinner. You know, and then, you know, you've taken care of your family, and you take time to do your prayers and get time to go to bed. And you know, these are, you know, everyday life. But you know, then, you know, there comes a time in our personal life that our choices, you know, have to be a little more different. Where you know, personally for myself, um, I make a decision to get up very, very early in the morning, and I'm talking about early, 2, 3, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the reason I feel that I am awakened by spirit is because there's a lot of things that I have to do in order for me to be ready and prepared for my responsibility. And my responsibility right now is my husband, of course, myself. You know, I love to, you know, go in the shower before the sun rises. You know, I love to get myself prepared before the sun rises, get dressed. And then the sun comes up, and, you know, the puppies wake up. And I've already said my prayers. I've already checked on if I need to check with anybody. I've that would be like on email, and I will prepare breakfast for my husband, see how he's doing, how he's feeling. If I can do anything for him, we would have time to have conversations and talk about the day. What are we going to do? What would you like to do? What would he like to do? You know, then we talk about the puppies. Do we take the puppies here, there? Do we go around the block? I mean, you know, we have a simple life right now. So, you know, and it's very simple, and it's very doable, and I can take time to be in prayer, and do my personal ceremony, you know, throughout the day, and it's an ongoing thing with me, whether I am in the privacy of my home or here on the land. And I just want to share with everybody that right now, this very moment, I am on the land right now with my husband and puppy. This past weekend, I took the time out to walk my talk. In other words, I keep talking about Ish, and I do live in a surroundings where I'm basically outdoors. But this past weekend, we made extra decision, collective decision, to go out into the mountains. We are at 6,500 feet here in Estancia, but we went up into the mountains that is 9,000 feet. And so the decision was made to do that. There are, you know, a few reasons why we did that, but finding myself out in nature, surrounded by, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80-foot pine trees ponderosa pine trees, you know, surrounded by this beautiful forest and, you know, beautiful, beautiful landscape um, of, of, of just this uh, beautiful, beautiful mountains. Um, I, I was just taken back. I didn't want to do anything, meaning I just wanted to sit. I just wanted to sit and observe and listen and, you know, move my little chair about the shade and the sun, um, watching everything around me, whether it was my husband, my puppies, and, you know, in conversation. So we have to make these choices. And this to me was very refreshing because it kind of clears, you know, we have to take deep breaths when we go outside, and certainly when we go, you know, outdoors and we're surrounded by the deep trees, and, you know, so we do this, and our experience is a little bit different. And I know from sleeping outdoors, even though I am in our beloved 1971 Airstream, um, I have these just beautiful, beautiful dreams because I'm surrounded. I can see the big trees around my windows. I'm surrounded by the outside, and there was some of the moon out there, and I was witnessing the moon and thinking about, you know, just how fortunate I was that I was on this top of this mountain. And I went into dreaming, and I was dreaming about being back home. I was dreaming about my teacher. I was dreaming about being in ceremony, and just this ongoing, you know, just beautiful, beautiful patterning. So for those of us that are wondering, yeah, why is it that I'm not like dreaming? Why is it that it's because we have to get out of the stagnant of everyday life, you know, and I'm not saying that anybody's life is stagnant, but, you know, I take care of this land and I'm over at my house. But then there's an added step about being outdoors, you know, walking in a new piece of ground that you haven't been in, you know, having that communion with nature, you know, just, you know, going through that whole communion during the day and then going into a different phase of dreaming. You know, we have to, if we want to clear our space personally, you know, step outdoors in some other different place and experience it is all that I'm saying. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Just hearing you talk about this makes me exhale. Just to know how accessible it is. I think I'm ready for a trip to the mountains personally. And I love what you say about the power of making choices. That it looks like you're getting a little feedback from me, grandmother. I hope not. And I'll keep this short, and then I have another comment here to read to you. But the power of making choices to make the time for yourself, and how important that is. And you said something that's so important in listening, about to listen. You love to sit and listen, and that's something that our society seems to have forgotten the power of listening, and the power of asking questions too, rather than having all the answers. So to be in that state of awe and wonder, and just be willing to listen to the nature around us. It reminds me of Akashiana Bars when we had her on our call many months ago, and she talked about loving to go out into the woods barefoot and just hear all the messages the plants and the trees and the stones have for her. and just listening so intently. So I appreciate that. So Brea writes, Grandmother, can you help us understand how to deal with the very serious environmental conditions happening on this planet? Great question. Natural disasters become more and more intense. The climate is so unpredictable. It feels like Mother Nature is so angry at how humans are assaulting her. The winds have been very high here this week, but this is a small event compared to the disasters that are happening in so many places in the world. How should we deal with these frightening events?
Well, one thing that I do, Bria, is I pray for those people that are in government making these decisions. And I pray directly to the elements and to the mother. We have been told since the 40s, 1940s, that we're going through huge changes environmentally. There were some people talking about it, like Gandhi. An elder came from north of Canada into Central America, came across the United States and into Mexico and Central America. His name was Gray Wolf. No, I'm sorry, Gray Owl. And he talked about that. He talked about bringing people together in the three Americas, to talk about these changes. Indigenous people, people that are living simple lives, everyday survival life, became very concerned about this. But then there is the life of the people that is moving so rapidly that they do not have the chance to stop. There's a mentality, within huge corporate world that their way of thinking is not thinking about the environment, and they are, missing that, and it seems like from generation to generation, they have lost all that sensitivity, and not even to acknowledge that there are problems growing on around the globe and with our environment. And so we have been told in our sacred teachings that the mother, the spirit of the Mother Earth, is going through gestation. And as she is going through this gestation, she is also going through periods of where she is shaking herself, and she is shaking anything that she does not want or need. And so what this expresses is that the earth has the capacity to renew itself, and it will do what it has to do to get rid of what doesn't belong there. And so with that respect, we pray to the earth and we honor the earth, and we try to understand what she is going through. If we look at ourselves as a human, as an entity, if somebody stepped on my toe, if my husband, who's 6'4" and weighs 270 pounds, steps on my toe, I'm going to let out a big scream. I'm going to try to pull my foot from underneath him. I'm going to, react. And it's all like that. There is these natural reactions, that happened when we are disobedient with not being in balance with nature. it's a difficult, very, very difficult and sensitive, question that Bria is asking. But where I find peace in my heart is to pray for those people that are making decisions for the whole, whatever they are. They're 1%, 2%, 3% people that are making these horrible decisions for humanity, and are responsible for a lot of the destruction and a lot of the negligence that's going on. The thing about it is that we have to pray. We have to pray, and we pray for them to make better decisions, make positive decisions. And we pray also for their children and grandchildren, because they are going through the effect that we are all feeling. No one is immune from the effect of this small percentage of people around the globe that are making these decisions. We're all involved, all of us. And so it's affecting all of us. But, you can't fight negativity with negativity. You have to take something and turn it into a positive energy by thinking positive, by praying positive, by having that desire for it to turn positive. It's the only way that we can do it. One person can't do it. 100 persons cannot do it. 1,000 persons cannot do it. 1 million people cannot do it. But if we took everyone around the planet and put that forth, I'll tell you what, the power of prayer would be so much greater, and we can turn all of this around in our lifetime. The thing is getting the word out. And is everybody ready for the change? Some of us talk about the change, but then at the same time, we're not walking our talk.
Thank you. I've recently become involved with this Citizens Climate Lobby, which is an organization that is that deserves our prayers as well, I would add, if possible, because they are addressing the advocacy and those who are policy changers with a peaceful approach, and recognizing that you can't meet negativity with negativity, like you say. So thank you for pointing that out. An anonymous viewer asks, and we only have a little bit of time left, but perhaps we can extend our time together a little bit longer if you could answer this question, because I think it's a wonderful one. Thank you so much, Grandmother, for all that you are doing for us. And I think we all join her or him in that comment. Can you elaborate on what we can do to support ourselves during the 4th cycle?
The only thing that I can say on what we can do, we have to talk to our children. We have to talk to our partners, our husbands, wives, lovers. We speak to them and say, my time is coming where I have finished, the 4 cycles of life. You go through the 4 cycles and you say, when my time is coming where I need to be in this space of my life in my relationship with the Creator. And you have to make it, it's like making your own little nest. It's like finding a little place, a little niche in your house of, perhaps maybe you want to have prayer and not have breakfast. Maybe you want to be in prayer and not have lunch. Maybe you want to be in prayer and not have any meals. And the family has to respect that. And if the door is closed in your little room where you want to stay and pray in peace, or be outdoors, then we have to respect that. And so we have to make it happen. There's no right way or wrong way of doing this. You just have to feel your way and talk to your family, because if you disconnect from your family and you say, oh, I'm just going to go do this, but then there's no communication, no dialogue, and you just kind of take off without any conversation to your family, then nobody's going to know what happened to you. And we live in a world where there's a lot of organizations that protect children and elderly and every age person. So we just want to communicate and say, hey, for the next 30 days, I want to be in quietness and in isolation, and and if you feel so, and want to make me a cup of tea or a cup of soup, you can put it in the doorway, and when I'm ready, I'll grab it. Do what you have to do to make yourself and put yourself in that space of quietness. Maybe you might want to go through a couple of days of just prayer and no sleeping, no food. All of that is totally, totally perfect. Practicing it a little bit more. You don't have to go away and practice that somewhere. You can practice it at home. It's all it. We just have to make a decision and do it. And not be afraid to do it.
Wonderful, wonderful. So awareness, acceptance, and communication is what I hear. Beautiful. And I know that I am in my fourth stage cycle. Clearly, I'm beyond or going through it myself. And I recognize that the older I get, the easier it is for me to communicate exactly what's important to me. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for this call. I thank you for sharing with us these cycles of life in which we can all be aware of them and pay honor to them. And I know personally for me, I'm taking away that it is owed to us and it is our right uh, to honor our natural environment. And actually, we have a raised hand here. Let me see here. And we're at the end of our call, yet I'm not seeing a comment. So I don't know if that was a mistake. So if that, we'll wait a couple more seconds. Who's raised their hand? And if you would like to make a comment while we still have grandmother on the phone with us here, please do. Otherwise, perhaps it was an error. And there are a lot of wonderful little buttons here. So while we're waiting for the clarity, speaking of communicating, while we're waiting to make sure that we're not missing anybody and we want everyone's voice to be heard, I will say that on behalf of the Charter for Compassion International and the Women and Girls sector, which is one of 12 sectors of the Charter for Compassion, and we are we're in 50 countries around the world. And we are hosts to 400 cities of compassion with 1,700 partners organized in those 12 sectors. And at the Women and Girls sector, we have a series of webinars going on right now called Reaction to Response. In other words, transforming our reactionary impulse to response. And our current conversation is on the power of the masculine in the world of the divine feminine. And we have a call coming up, and I'm bringing it up very quickly here because I thought I had it. And let me tell you exactly so I give it to you properly. You can get to it from charterforcompassion.org. And that's the month of June is the role of the masculine and the men who hold us. And actually this call, let me just say real quickly, our speaker is Amo McCullis, and Amo is a considers himself a transformational feminist. And when I tell you where he comes from, you'll understand why, because he was at one time known as the largest racist skinhead part of a racist skinhead organization on earth. So now talk about transformation, awareness to transformation. So now he considers himself a feminist and a peace activist. So he'll be on our call coming up. And I will send you all that information in an email if you've registered for this call, which is why you're on the call. You will be getting the follow-up information of all these things. And in your chat window, you'll also see the website link to followthegoldenpath.org, which is where you can connect with all the works of Grandmother Flordemayo. And I know that they have a wonderful store there and ways of signing up for workshops with Grandmother. So let me just double check here. Last comment is, thank you, Grandmother. Can you post some prayers that we can all utilize? So perhaps if you send them, if there's any prayers you can post, you can send them to me and I can send them out. But please answer that question as well. But I want to let you know that that option is available.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Grandmother. Any parting words?
Much love and light to everybody. I want to remind everybody that the beloved mother, some time ago, whether it was 10 years ago, awoken me in the middle of the night and said, Flordemayo, humanity is made of love and light. And so I always say to everybody, much love and light, because these are the words from the beloved mother. Thank you so much to everybody.
Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day or evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.